Welcome to the Whitetail Legacy Podcast.
And we get the back view of him. And I mean, it's just a mega.
52 yards is a long shot. Magnum PI is what we named him. No idea.
Just a magnum.
Yeah, just a magnum.
Come on, Cam, last year we said probably 150, mid 150.
Yeah.
Same doe from the morning come out with that 9-pointer.
Here steps out this 90-inch 8-point. You're like,
I'm like, okay, well, there's still a buck back there grunting.
Yeah.
And then out steps like another 90-inch 8-pointer. I'm like, all right.
Yeah.
Bro.
Yeah.
Bro.
Yeah.
You're like, I'm like, deer, right there.
Yeah, like
and he's
30
already
yards.
30 yards.
Yeah.
He was literally 5 yards from the base of the tree. Could have been, had a buck down at 1:40 in the afternoon, back there deep on public. 3 does come out pretty early. It was like 245, 24 yard shot, sent the combat veteran, and I tell you what, man, dude, it just smoked. We always get so jacked up when the other person kills. It's just almost like we got it done.
Yeah. And when you killed that doe, I was like, hell yeah, man.
And we come down here to Missouri.
I asked Comey one more time, I'm like, is it a good buck? And he goes, yeah, real good, solid buck. I'm like, all right, boom. And the deer just drops. Sure. Super special meat.
Whitetail Legacy Podcast, bringing you back to the hunt and leaving a legacy. Baller Rut.
This is the Whitetail Legacy Podcast coming in your ear holes with another whitetail episode. Can you believe it?
Tell me again.
And we're about a dozen deep in Bush Light corn cans, and we're going to talk a little rut success here. There's nothing like setting up on a doe bedding area where you know where the doe bedding area is set on the downwind side, just like textbook, and you got that faint buck trail and you get it done. You know what I mean? Just an absolute textbook story here of
Success?
rut, funnel, doe bedding area. Let's get into the people that make this possible, and we'll get into the show. You got the veteran broadhead this week, homie.
Yeah, guys. A lot of broadhead talk's been popping up lately on social, and you know what we're shooting is going to be the 4-blade, which is a cut-on contact mechanical broadhead featuring the momentum management technology that's going to give you the ultimate pass-through performance that's going to really increase your recovery rates because you have the entry and the exit wound on that animal. So if you're looking to pick up one of these, it's going to be at veteranip.com.
You got the VIP shout out.
I do. This week we're going to shout out Wayne Heddle, and he served in the Air Force for 8 years. So Wayne, we appreciate your service, and 8 years is a long time, man, to be doing that, and we appreciate that and your sacrifice for this country.
Man, you are showing up tonight, man.
Hey.
You are you got the ECW calls ripping.
Yeah, this is going to be for shout out to local listeners. If you guys want to see some of these ECW calls, you can check them out in Roseville at Jeff's shop. He's got every call that he's got is out there displayed, and you can actually try them out in their studio. So head down there to Roseville and check them out.
All right, I got the Exodus Trail Cam tip of the week. This is going back to something that we were just talking about when we were outside taking a little break in between episodes here. Number and match your cams, not only on the cam, but on a map. And that's what I've been trying to do. I've been trying to put a trail camera icon and then number 5 or something. You know what I mean? So you know you have the correct SD card, and then at the end of the season when you're looking for, like, okay, where's 11? You know what I mean? You can scroll through there, and you're like, did I get that cam or did I not get that cam? And if it's just a cam mark instead of number 3, you're like, I got number 3 sitting right there, so I know I got that one. So I've been trying to do that, and it helps with finding them, but then it also helps with connecting the dots too. So you're like, okay, I got this buck on cam number 3, 8, and 7. And this is the dates that I got them. And you can look at your map. Okay, here's 3, here's 8, here's 3, here's 7. How is he working this area? And having those little pinpoint marks like we do tells the story. Like, okay, this deer is here on October 29th, and then he's still here on November 10th, and he's here on the 2nd. You're like, okay, so from the 29th to the 10th, he probably didn't leave this area very much. So I got a real high chance of running into him there. So numbering the cams, not only for finding them, but also for pinpointing, mapping bucks, you know, kind of like Deer Lab? Is that what it was?
Yeah.
Kind of like Deer Lab does, but in your own like simplistic way. But Deer Lab goes way more in depth with wind and temp and all that stuff. So
it's only taken us 5 years to do this.
Yeah, but hey, we're doing it now. So, and we're giving you these tips. These are stuff that we've learned over time, and once you do them and you see it connecting, you're like, man, I should have been doing this a long time ago.
Yeah.
And Ingram's Outdoor Obsession, all your taxidermy needs, ducks, deer, turkeys, he's got you covered. All our local guys, check him out. Great man, great father, great taxidermist. Let's get into the show. All right, we got Pierce Moore on the line. This is episodes I love, these rut tactic podcasts. The listeners love them too. We're going to talk about how to set up on doe bedding and how to read the sign correctly to make the right moves to set up. So how you doing tonight, Pierce?
Oh, I'm pretty good, man. Pretty good.
Hey, I seen you on the Beast Forum there. You've been crushing a lot of bucks. Kentucky early season, multiple bucks from your home state year after year. So when I see guys like that are getting it done, I want to talk to them and see what they're doing. And we're going to talk about a giant you killed setting up on doe bedding. I'm pretty excited to hear the story and get into it. But before that, let the listeners know a little bit about you.
All right. I'm Pierce Moore. I'm 25. I'm from Southern Ohio. And I think I'm up to 12. I got 12 bucks over 130 on the wall. And I killed another buck when I was probably 13. I got a little excited. Shot about 110-inch deer, but other than that,
there.
Yeah. Yeah, I was watching a doe out in the field, and it was youth season. I was like, man, that doe gets a little bit closer, I'm gonna bust her. And all of a sudden, that buck popped up, and I saw 10 points, and I put the gun on him, and I let him have it. And I walked up on him. I was like, oh man, that was a heck of a 2-year-old. But yeah, I think we've all been there. You learn from that kind of stuff, or if you're content shooting 110-inch deer, then there's nothing wrong with that either. But yeah, the really big one that I killed back in 2013, that's the one that really sticks out, and that's kind of what set me on the pace that I am right now, and consistently killing big deer and setting up on big deer. And the whole mobile hunting thing is really got started for me when I was probably about 16, and I killed that big one when I was 19. So I had been mobile hunting there for a little bit with a climber, but I'll go ahead and jump into that story about the big one. And what is it?
Go ahead and rip the story, and then we'll break down the tactics of how you set up afterward.
All right. Sounds good, man. So I hunt this farm with a buddy, and we had actually hunted this farm probably 2 weeks prior, and it was the last week of October, and it was just the perfect evening. Like, I was at work, and I called my buddy. I was like, hey, man, I'm trying to get out of work so we can go hunting this evening. I said, it's going to be a perfect evening to go. He's like, I know, man, and let's go. So I call him when I get done work, and I'm like, hey, man, let's go. And I go pick up him. We head out to this farm. Well, as we're walking in, I'm like, hey, man, I was like, hey, when we were younger, we would, every doe that came through, we would murder them. And it was getting to that point in October where I'm like, hey, we probably shouldn't shoot any does tonight. He's like, all right. So I get set up. About 5 minutes later, I get a text from my buddy. Man, I just smashed a doe. I'm like,
That's me.
I'm like, all right. So about an hour goes by, and a group of does came past me, and I was like, he's already shot one. So I went ahead and I plugged the doe too, and then it was probably 30 minutes before before the sun went down, and my buddy calls me. You can hear the shaking in his voice, and he's like, "I just saw a giant." I was like, "Really?" I was like, I bet you wish you didn't shoot that doe. And he's like, yeah. He said he hit that doe's blood trail, and he just turned around and went right back the way he came. And I was like, yeah, that's how that goes. But so anyways, fast forward 2 weeks later, I had scheduled off my rut vacation for November 7th through the 11th. And I just so happened the wind was perfect for my opening morning of my vacation. I called my buddy. I'm like, hey man, let's crash in there on that standing cornfield first thing in the morning. I said we got perfect wind to cut that bedding area, and he's like, all right, man. Just call me in the morning, and if I don't get up, just go without me. And I was like, all right. I was like, are you sure? Just come over tonight. He's like, oh no, it's all right. Just I'll get up. So next morning, alarm clock goes off 4 o'clock. I'm like calling him, nothing. And about the 12th time I called him, I was like, yeah, he's not waking up. So I went ahead and went. I sneak around this standing cornfield, and I don't get in a rush in the mornings. I like to walk about 50 yards, stop, listen, and I'll listen for a couple seconds and make sure I'm not getting close to something, or I'm not going to bump something walking in. As long as I can avoid it, I'm going to try to avoid it at all costs. And I'm slipping down these corn rows with my climber on my back, and finally get in there. And there's this old wooden tree stand that it sits in this about, I don't know, it's probably 30 yards off the edge of the cornfield, but it's right on the edge of this just thick, nasty bedding, and all these does like they filter out in this corner. They really filter out in several different places on that field, but they really are concentrated on that corner. So I climb up in this wooden ladder, this old rickety wooden ladder stand. The stand's not even standing today because it was an ash tree, and as you know, the emerald ash borers have killed every ash around. So I don't know if that's the same in your area or not.
Every ash tree smoked.
Yeah, man, it's ridiculous.
I was walking our private piece the other day, and there was 4 trees on our side of the fence that we could hang in on one little stretch. Every one of them dead ass ash tree. I was like, oh, this would have been prime 3 years ago.
No, it's sickening. I mean, because your ash trees are really good climate trees. Like they're perfect for climbers. But anyway, so I climb up this rickety wooden ladder stand, and it's only about 10 feet. So I get up there. I got my climber on my back. I hook it up to the top of the ladder stand, and I climb about another 10 or 12, probably another 10 or 12 feet, and get set up. And it was really slow. First thing, I hadn't really seen anything, so I'll blind call every once in a while just to, I don't know, break a little bit of the silence and see if I can't make something happen. But so I hit the grunt call, and I rattled for a second, and then I always do a snort wheeze at the end, and I just left it at that, real short, nothing crazy. And probably about 5 or 10 minutes later, this little 5-pointer comes crashing out of all that bedding. You can tell he looked like he just got his butt whipped or something. You could tell he was running for a reason. And I had been texting my dad back and forth that morning because he was hunting another farm. And I was like, man, I just had a 5-pointer run by me, and it looks like he was scared to death. He's like, well, get ready. I'd say there's a big one in there. Well, it wasn't 5 minutes later, and I get another text, and it's my buddy. My buddy's like, hey, I overslept. Grant, it's like 5 after 9. I'm like, yeah, no shit. And about that time I look up, and I just see tines coming through that thicket, and I was like, oh my gosh. And he stops about, I'd say 70, 80 yards from me in that thick stuff, and he's working a scrape, and those big tines just going back and forth, hitting branches. And I had to look away. I was like, I couldn't believe what I was seeing, because at that point that was, and honestly, still to this day, that's probably the biggest deer I've seen from my stand. And I looked away, and I was telling myself, I'm like, it's just a doe. It's just a doe. It's just a doe. Just trying to calm my nerves. And he starts coming on a line, in line to where I'm at. And then he started to break off, and he was quartered to me a little bit, but he got behind a tree, and I went ahead and drew, and he's at 25 yards. He stepped out behind that tree, and I gave him the good old man, just like every other guy does. And he stopped, and I put it right behind his shoulder and smoked him. He takes off running through the thicket and gets out about 90 yards, and his tail starts flickering, and I can tell he's kind of staggering a little bit, but he actually made it about another 50 yards from that spot. And I called my dad. At this point, I'm destroyed. The adrenaline dump I had was insane. And I call my dad, and I can't even make words come out of my mouth. And my dad's like, did you fall out of your stand? Are you okay? And I finally get it out of my mouth. I'm like, I just shot a monster. And Dad's like, are you serious? He's like, how big is he? I was like, I have no clue. I said, I think he's, I don't know, a 10-pointer with a split G2. He might be 145 inches. And I was notorious before that for overscoring him by about 10 or 15 inches from the time I shot him to the time we went and found him on the blood trail. I'm like, wow, he looked a little bit bigger than that from the tree stand.
Been there.
So I was a little generous with this one. And so I get off the phone with my dad, and I call my buddy. I'm like, dude, I just smoked a giant back here. And he's like, you're just screwing with me. I was like, no, man, I promise you. I said, go to my house. Dad's going to meet you there, and come out here. We gotta find this thing. I said he's a stud. So they get out there, and they help me. We're tracking this buck, and about 20 yards away from this pond, we lose the blood trail altogether. And I was just distraught. And so we start spanning out, just grid searching. And my buddy gets around the other side of this pond, and he goes, there he is. He's in the pond. And you could see one side sticking out of the pond. And I'll never forget it. I just took off. I booked it around the pond, and I got out in the water. I grabbed him, and when I pulled him up out of the water, it was like I was just in amazement. I was like, oh my gosh. I couldn't believe what I was looking at, because like I said, I looked at his rack one time. I looked away. I knew if I looked at it too long, I was just going to get worked up and maybe cause myself to miss the shot, or just, you know how that goes. It's
you want to stay as calm as you possibly can to make sure.
Pretty easy to get worked up in a situation like that, but at the same time, you got to talk yourself through that situation to where you can execute. But so anyways, I pull him up out of the pond, and he's got split brow tines. He's got a split G2. He's got a crab claw out at the end of his tine. He's like a mainframe 12 with the split brows, a kicker off of one of his beams, and that split G2. And I was like, oh my gosh, I could. And my dad's like, he's like, 145 inches my ass. And I was like, yeah, you might have had a little bit of ground growth. I was like, I guess the last 5 that I've killed and said they were 5 or 10 inches bigger has finally added up to this one, underscoring him by 20 inches. He ended up scoring 165, but I was tickled to death, man. At the time, I was just how I was set up. I was set up hunting the downwind side of this big bedding area and trying to cut that corner of that field. I don't know if you took a good look at that picture or not that I uploaded to the Hunting Beast or not, but
yeah, I did. Yeah, you're setting up kind of on the edge of the corner, trying to cut the edge of the bedding there.
I'm right about 30 yards off that corner, and that wind is it's cutting straight out of that corner. So even if a deer does come down either edge of that cornfield, if it's a buck, I should be good until he gets right around my shooting lane, and it's going to be make or break right there. But honestly, first thing in the morning when it's that cold and your thermals are pushing up that hard, you can get away with it. I think you can get away with a lot more than you can on a calmer morning or like a morning where you don't have your thermals really kicking in, because you go from extremely cold to like when the sun's kicking and starting to warm things up. But
yeah.
So anyways,
sure, those thermals are key, man. If you can get that thermal rising in the morning and get in there. But so I love that map setup, because you had the water, then you had the field, and you had that natural pinch and the doe bedding right off the edge of that field. And you set up perfect. Same thing I would have, to where you could shoot the field if you absolutely have to, but more than likely, like I said, I've never killed a buck out in the field, so you're.
No, I mean, it's a little different scenario with standing corn versus a cut cornfield. And honestly, if it was a cut cornfield, I would have to change up my access completely to hunt that spot. But with it being in standing corn, you can get away with a lot more than you could if it was a cut cornfield. If it's a cut cornfield, I've probably got to beat 15 or 20 does that are feeding out in that cornfield, and they're gonna have me busted early in the morning, and it wouldn't be ideal.
Yeah, that's one of the challenging things about whether you're hunting the edge of a field in the rut, whether to go in the morning or potentially bust off what's on there, or wait till the sun's up, make sure there's nothing on it. That's a lot. That's a topic that goes up a lot, and
right.
There's no in between. It's either wait or just go. You know what I mean? There's no like in between, and I've always just went, because you always want to get in that stand. There's something about being in there that first 25 minutes of daylight. It's just so magical. A lot of stuff can happen in that first 25 minutes, but
right. I'll tell you, my favorite scenario is a bean field that's adjacent to a cut cornfield, and I'll get out in the middle of that bean field, and I'll just go extremely slow and just listen and make sure that I'm not going to walk right up on a deer, because I feel like if you walk right up on one and it gets your wind, then it's going to start blowing, and that's the most aggravating thing in the world. And I've made it work. I've made that work before too. I could give you an example of a morning that I went in during the rut, and I get about 150 yards from my tree, and this doe, she just starts blowing out of nowhere. I'm like, I knew she couldn't smell me from where I was at. I was like, there's no way she's smelling me. And I gave it 15 minutes. I let things kind of calm down, and then I walked on in. When I walked in, I pulled out my grunt tube, and I basically did a sachet around the bottom of my tree stand, tied on my compound as fast as I could, and shot up the tree stand and pulled my compound up, and right at daybreak, this buck came run. He came up out of the cedar thicket below me, and he was just kind of seeing what was going on because I was just trying to paint the picture and try to entice something, kind of cover up how that doe had been blown earlier on that morning, and it worked out. I ended up shooting him at about 20 yards.
Damn, can't beat that, man.
No,
I love it when stuff just happens like that. You know what I mean?
Right, and you gotta think out. You gotta do something outside of the box sometimes too. I mean,
that's something we keep talking about doing, going in on the ground and going outside the box and just sending it. And I wish if we had more time to hunt, we would do some radical stuff like that.
It's just like
like the whitetail adrenaline guys.
Yeah,
that stuff's. I love watching their stuff. I mean,
I do too.
You only get one October 14th weekend. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if it falls on the weekend or whatever, whatever that third weekend is of October, you only get one of them. You know, you want to spend it being a dumbass back there trying to spawn stock on public. I mean, you know what I mean? I mean, there's more calculated, better stuff. But if it's 30 degrees and wind, or if it's 30-mile-an-hour winds, I mean, hell, you might want to try it. I don't know.
Yeah, for sure.
It's some stuff's got to be going on in order to get radical, I guess.
Yeah.
Right. I like to in a really solid downpour, and this past year I had one day during my vacation that it was just nasty, and it poured all day long. I was like, well, it's the last week of October. It's probably a pretty good time to put some boots on the ground during this downpour and try to maybe piece some stuff together. So I walked all day scouring for sign and just trying to put some pieces of the puzzle together on a big public land buck that I had seen earlier in the summer. And then that buck ended up getting killed 2 days later by a guy that I saw that guy earlier that day. And it was a tough break, really, because I knew I was closing in on him, and that guy was hunting closer to me that day, and I was like, man, I don't. And then it was like I said, it was 2 days later, and my dad calls me and he goes, I just saw a giant up here at the gas station. I was like, oh, really? I was like, that's awesome. He's like, I'm like, how big is he? He's like, man, I'd say he's every bit of 180, 190. I was like, oh, really? It's probably that buck down there on that piece of public, just joking around. And Dad's like, yeah, the guy was driving a white Toyota with a bunch of hunting stickers on the back. And I was like, was it an older guy with a gray scraggly beard? He's like, yeah. I was like, glasses? I was like, and he's like, yeah. He's like, do you know him? I was like, well, it sounds an awful lot like the guy I ran into on public. And I'm like, sooner or later a picture will surface and I'll figure out that it was him. And that part of me was like, man, I kind of hope a picture doesn't surface. I hope they don't announce it to social media where that buck was killed. And it's like 2 weeks later, Ohio trophy bucks or something posts this guy and this deer taken on public land in Adams County. I was like, man. I'm like, oh, great. And I look at the picture. I'm like, yeah, that's definitely him. Big flyers off his G2s. And I was like, So I switched up. I had to switch up the whole game plan there because that was the one I was chasing early season. Didn't work out, but that just drives you to push a little bit harder the following year.
Yeah, there's nothing like losing a buck like that to really drive. That hasn't happened to us directly. We lost that one the neighbor's shot, but
Yeah, we lost that one, and then there's a deer along the road with his head cut off. Like every time I go home,
it's TT.
I just
I'm telling you.
envision that deer just laying there, and you just
Yeah.
don't know what deer it is. It's definitely a buck because it had a giant body.
Yeah. No one's
But-
cutting the head off a doe.
Exactly. I mean,
I'm gonna mount this
come
doe.
on. Yeah, for sure.
This doe skull.
Has a beautiful October coat.
Trophy
But,
doe.
Yeah, I mean, it just like I was going home Monday or Tuesday. Yeah, and every time I get to that spot, I just look and like I can still see that deer laying there.
Should have got
It's
there
tragic.
earlier.
Yeah, I
You
guess.
could have known what it
Holy
was.
shit.
Probably a 6-pointer. Rutted up 6-pointer.
Yeah. Ugh.
Oh man, that spot that I killed that big one. I heard you guys say in a podcast today that some of these farms that you guys hunt 3 years from now, they're completely, totally different, and the deer aren't doing anything remotely the same. And that couldn't be more true for that farm. That farm kind of took a turn for the worse. The hunting pressure went up a good bit, and there's a major highway right there too, and those deer get piled up every year. So
Yeah.
the age structures just it went to shit.
As long as nothing changes, you're good to go. But if the hunting pressure comes in, it's over.
Yeah, and
The
actually,
deer are still there, but it's just way harder to
right.
kill them.
right, they switch up their their entry and access routes and
Yeah.
whatnot. But actually, right there in that corner, 2 monster trees fell. And I'd say they probably fell right on that trail where I shot that buck, but which we got a little gung-ho the next year too and hung a set. We hung a double man set right there in that corner, and that probably didn't help anything either. I feel like if you hang one, it's usually pretty obvious and they're going to catch on. But
Yeah, it depends on how much you hunt it. If you start hunting it a bunch, they're going to catch on. But
right, we weren't pounding it, but at the same time, I get a little cautious, a
Yeah,
little self-conscious with stuff like that.
just kind of sounds like my piece that I hunted growing up, as I started getting more serious and, really into hunting, trying to read the sign and everything and get trail cam data organized and learn what the deer were doing from that and learning what they were doing from hunting through, visual observation. It just seemed like I was always a year behind. And then, the next year I'd tweak to that and the deer would change just a bit and I'd be, a little bit off again to where I'd get close, but not, super close or, be in a super money spot. And,
bro, just imagine if you ran mobile like you did now on that
dude.
property.
Yeah, I mean, I would feel like my chance would be a lot better.
A lot better.
Yeah. And it's just the evolution of becoming a hunter, or, a diehard or whatever you want to call it. And just being out there and reading the sign and, trying to change and feel like you got a good plan and thinking you're in the right spot and having all the confidence in the world in it. And then, you just go through all that year. And because you're not mobile or you're not willing to change or you're not able to go out there and scout during season or do what you need to do.
This was a good spot last year, so I'm going to stick to it.
Exactly.
instead of saying-
You fell in love with it. And, just like you were saying there, Pierce, you're not adapting to what it is now. And,
Right.
whether that's lack of skill or lack of being able to read sign or, commitment to one spot or, you're lazy or, whatever it may be. It just all goes off of what you want to get out as your end result.
Yeah, actually on that particular farm that I killed the big one on, so that's typically corn. It was corn the year I killed him, and then it was beans the following year. So when it's beans the following year, we usually hit it pretty hard early, and then honestly, if there isn't any food in that area, it makes it kind of tougher to hunt because we don't have a whole lot right there to actually hunt. So if they aren't coming to that food source or scanning the outside edges of that bedding area, we're kind of out of the game. So I killed one that year. The following year, it was in soybeans. No luck. We'll have bucks on camera on those soybeans until they turn, and then they're gone. So we didn't kill anything the following year, and then it was in corn again. Well, when it was in corn again, my buddy ended up killing about 135-inch buck, and he actually killed it out of that set that we hung right there in that corner. But that buck he was doing the exact same thing. He was going right down the edge of that bedding area, and he was actually going the opposite way. He had actually cut through it, and I was able to grunt and pull him over to where my buddy could get a shot at him. But then we killed one that year. The following year, no luck because it was in soybeans. Then the year after that, I hunted a pretty big 8-pointer out there all year, and I had him at 25 yards one evening. It was New Year's Eve. Someone lights a bonfire up by this house, and these deer fed out. They had fed way out in this field, and I had beat 20 does that evening. They had all walked the same trail. I was set up in a different area on that farm, but they had all walked the same trail. There was a fresh skiff of snow on, and I had walked around that cornfield, and I'd found that trail that was coming out, and I set up about 15 yards off of it, and I was actually using a traditional bow that year. And, man, I beat 20 does, and I was like, man, where's that buck at? Like, every doe was in the field, and I look behind me, and here he comes. He's on that same trail that all those does had taken, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I hear, poof, and I was like, what the hell? And I look way out across the field, and these people had just lit this bonfire, and all of those does scatter across that field, and that buck just freezes right where he's at, and he's looking around, wondering what's going on. He just turns, and he goes right back the way he came, and I was like, yep, that's how my season went. But anyways, so that year it was in corn, and every year since that year, it's been in soybeans. So they stopped the whole crop rotation thing. Now it's just been in soybeans, and honestly, I don't think I've hunted that farm in the last year or two. So that's just how it goes.
Yeah, we got a farmer who's like that, just does corn on corn on corn on corn forever.
Oh, man. You can't beat that.
You hear that? Corn forever?
He's got pigs to feed. So you gotta plant that corn to feed the pigs, but
yeah, I'll tell you, man.
Then he don't get it out forever.
Yeah, he's not in a hurry to get it out.
He's not in a hurry to get it out and get it in the market and get it dry because he's just putting it in a bin and feeding it to the pigs.
Right.
So
I'll tell you, man. Some of the farmers that really slack, you can capitalize on them, especially the ones that leave their soybeans out in the first or second week of November. It's money. I was hunting a different farm a couple years ago, and this guy had soybeans out on it would be the northeast side of this cedar thicket, and he had soybeans out on the southwest side of the cedar thicket, and it was money. There was so many deer hemmed up in that cedar thicket, and this guy he only lets me hunt this little 5-acre cedar thicket, but I've killed 3 bucks out of that cedar thicket, two during the rut and one early season. It was actually the year after I killed the big one on that standing cornfield. I killed that buck my first sit of 2014.
Damn.
And he scored 161. So I went back to back those 2 years with 2 giants, and then I hit a little bit of not really a slump, but I shot several 130s, which I don't have a problem shooting.
Yeah, it's hard to pass. It's hard to pass a solid
130-inch deer.
I would say
140.
a 130-10. I mean,
Yeah, it's pretty.
he's got a good frame.
Yeah.
I mean, he's there.
He's a hard deer,
Right.
especially if you get 2 buck tags like us.
Yeah, right.
Oh yeah, shoot, man, that would be nice.
Yeah.
For sure. In order for me to get 2 buck tags, I gotta spend like $300 to hunt Kentucky.
Yeah.
And
It looks you had some pretty good success down there.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's a heck of a farm. That's a heck of a farm. I got a buddy at work that his family owns a big chunk of land down there. Last year, he's like, "Hey man, are you gonna hunt this? You gonna hunt this with me this year?" I was like, "Yeah, sure." It was like the Thursday before season. He's like, "Come down here and just drive around with me and take a look and see what you think." And I drove around. I was like, "Oh my gosh, this place is amazing. Alfalfa everywhere." I was like, "There's really not a spot you can set up and you're not going to see deer." And I was able to capitalize on that buck. I'd watched him for about 25 minutes, and he had velvet hanging down. And I was like, "Man, he's beautiful." I had my camera rolling too, and I'm like, "This is just beautiful." And he's getting ready to step out of my last shooting lane. I'm like, "What the hell am I doing?" And I dropped down on the bottom of my platform in my tree stand and pulled back and smoked him. But I was about to just let him walk on by just because it was early in the season. I was like, I might come back down here. I was like, it was just too perfect not to take the shot. So
yeah, you can't beat that, man. First day of the season and getting out there. That's a pretty sweet buck too, velvet hanging off of him and everything.
Right. I mean, heck, if I would have been able to hunt him the day before, he might have still had velvet on. Or if you hunt him the day after, he's probably going to have all that velvet.
Isn't that crazy?
White clean. So it's all about timing.
Yep. All right, man. Sure. Well, we appreciate you coming on. It's been awesome. Like I said, we like to talk to guys like you that got stuff going on. You're young and you're out there smashing them, dude.
Hell
so
yeah.
props to you.
I'm trying. So what? I've listened to a bunch of your guys' stuff now. So what are you guys running as far as like your mobile setup?
Last year we had both Lone Wolf setups, full size sticks. We're running 4 sticks. This year I bought mini sticks. I'm not sure what stand I'm gonna run. I bought the new Hawk. I'm not 100% satisfied with it. I might go back to the Lone Wolf just because I know it's solid. Or there's a couple more companies coming out now with stands. I might try them out. I'm not 100% sure, but for us, the Lone Wolf 4 sticks and the regular Lone Wolf stands, I'm running daisy chains. But for us, so we can get in a tree in about 8 minutes with 2 stands hung.
That's not bad at all.
During
pretty
season.
Quick.
Yeah, I mean, so we can be at the ground. We got a guy on the ground handing stuff up, climbing stuff up, so it goes a lot quicker.
Right.
And then Hunter always hangs, so we switch every hunt. We switch back and forth who hangs. But yeah, we got a pretty good system down, and I mean, I know people are super into modding their stuff, but just for anybody listening, if you get just a standard Lone Wolf stuff that you got, it is so much better than going out there and try to do it with a regular stand. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
It's just not even on the same level. So
Right.
This year I kind of started switching stuff up. I'm running a 5-step aider on the bottom, mini sticks. 4 sticks with an aider, I can get 20-inch sticks with an aider, I can get 18 foot. So
Yeah.
with the daisy chains, it's light. We'll see. It's first year running it, so.
Have you guys tried the whole saddle hunting?
Nope, we have not. I heard a ton of good stuff about it, man.
Yeah, I just shot out of one the other day, and I'm really liking it. It's pretty comfortable, and I'm going to be shooting. I'm using my recurve, just strictly using my recurve this year, and for whatever reason, to get over top of that bridge, it makes it's like helping with my form and stuff. It helps me keep that back shoulder up, but we'll see how it goes. I'm going to run a saddle and the silent approach ring of steps, and the just regular steps for my climbing system, which I've been running those steps for like the last 3 years, I think. They're pretty light, so I don't know if you guys have ever heard of those or not.
Mm-mm. No.
Oh, you haven't?
Mm-mm.
It's Bullman Outdoors, and it's the silent approach steps. They're like so 12 steps is like they're 5 pounds, and I typically only use 8 because I'm 6'2", so I can stride out there pretty good, and I always climb with like a lineman's belt or whatever, so I don't have any problem stretching my legs out there. But heck, the steps are under 5 pounds, and then the ring of steps is just like a ratchet strap, and you line those steps around the tree so you can pivot around the tree 360 degrees. And heck, man, I'm at 7 pounds, and the packability is just, it's amazing because they just pack in like 2 fanny packs. You have one fanny pack with 6 steps that are like 6 foot long, and then the other one's 5 foot long. So your 6 footers you use at the bottom of the tree, and as you work your way up, then you switch over to the 5 footers. But it's quick, quiet, and it's as light as you can get, really.
Yeah, we heard great stuff. Ton of people shooting saddles, and everybody that's in it said they love it. We just cannot lose the security of a stand yet.
Yeah.
A lot of guys out there just
trust me,
absolutely,
I've been the same way.
Absolutely loving it. We're just going to stick to our stands. I'm not real big on changing up what works, and this year I did, and I regret it. I regret it. So,
yeah,
I'm probably going to buy a different stand. I don't know. I'm going to try running it, and if I don't like it, then I'm going to buy something else.
Yeah.
So, it is what it is. You got to. That's the bad thing about it. I wish
you
could try and return. Try and return, but
for sure, it's a little too expensive to experiment around too much.
Yeah, I know, no kidding.
Yeah, I'm glad I found what works for me, and that's what I've been rolling with for the last few years. Hopefully I can get this whole saddle game down and see how comfortable that is. I might switch back over to the stand.
Well, you got my number, man. Let me know. Let me know what you think. I like to hear a lot of different people's opinions on it and hunt out of it season, man, and touch base with me and say, hey, this is baller or this ain't worth the shit.
Right. Yeah, man. I'll send you some stuff on those silent approach steps because they're slick. The pack, and when you're walking through the woods, you don't have to worry about those climbing sticks sticking up over top of your back and get caught on everything.
Yeah, that is a pain in the ass.
A lot of those like tight areas, thickets and stuff, if you're crawling, if you got to get down and crawl through some shit, you're not getting snagged up on everything. So
nice.
It's pretty good stuff, man.
All right, man. Well, we appreciate your time. I don't want to take up all your night, but definitely
I
love these rut tactics, setting up on doe bedding and people getting it done, like I said. So,
yep. Hey, thanks for having me on. It's good talking to you guys.
That right there is another young guy crushing bucks, multiple states, getting it done, and doing those tactics that you need to do. And he's just hunting a lot, you know what I mean? He's just getting out there, not giving up, and sounds like he's picking the right properties. He's running the cams. If he's not got much on the cams, he's not saying this property was good 2 years ago, so I'm hunting here. He's saying, hey, this ain't good, I'm moving on. You know, and that's something that we got caught doing when we were hunting for freeze. We were hunting the stands that were good in the past, but with the hunting pressure coming in, kind of ruined it, and that's something that we learned. If those deer are changing over the years, you got to change with them. So as long as
it's tough.
Yeah,
I mean it is tough.
Yeah, as long as nothing else changes, you're good.
Right.
But if stuff starts changing, hunting pressure, they come in and log or bulldoze, or someone puts a house in somewhere, it's going to change some stuff, and you got to start over. But starting over is fun too, man.
It
so
is.
So you guys know what to do. Get out there, do the right thing, leave a legacy, and Whitetail Legacy is out until next Wednesday at 11 a.m. Central Time when we're coming in your ear holes.